What level of natural disaster could simultaneously bring down the majority of the world's civilizations? Most people might think of super earthquakes, colossal tsunamis, massive floods, or spectacular volcanic eruptions and meteor strikes. However, for the global population, abrupt climate change might be a more immediate and terrifying answer. As early as the 6th century AD, there was such a period of extraordinary hardship for all civilizations. It not only thoroughly devastated the already declining classical civilizations, but also indirectly caused a dark age that lasted for centuries. Around the mid-6th century AD, major natural disasters began affecting various parts of the world. Because these disasters spanned Europe, Asia, and North Africa, they were documented by numerous contemporary civilizations. Although the people who experienced these events lived in a very distant past, the pessimistic tone of their records still allows future generations to feel the despair and helplessness they endured. First, there is Procopius, famed for his work, History of the Wars. He was a secretary to the general of the Eastern Roman Empire, actively serving on the North African front, where he witnessed the onset of a major disaster. In his Vandalic War, he mentions ominous signs in the winter of 536 AD. Throughout the following year, the sun lost its usual brightness, dimming to the level of the moon. It became difficult to see clearly, as if a solar eclipse was constantly occurring. As a result, everyone suffered from war and disease. Meanwhile, Cassiodorus in Italy recorded similar observations. He noted that the sun no longer shone as brightly as before, and its light had turned an incredible blue. Even at noon, it failed to cast a clear shadow, and the moon, even at full, lacked its former brightness. As for John of Ephesus, he similarly wrote in the second volume of his Ecclesiastical History that the sun became darkened and remained so for a year and a half, only illuminating the earth for 4 hours each day. People were terrified, fearing that the sun would never shine as it once did. Additionally, the historian Scholastica in Constantinople also recorded that the sun during the day and the moon at night both dimmed significantly. Even in China's southern and northern dynasties period, similar accounts can be found in the History of the Southern Dynasties. Around mid-November to late December 535 AD, yellow dust fell from the sky like snow. Clearly, various records confirm the presence of a mysterious atmospheric cloud which blocked sunlight and plunged the world into darkness. In addition to the textual descriptions left by ancient people, modern science has also detected a widespread drop in temperatures through the study of tree ring patterns from various regions. From the oaks in Scandinavia to the bristlecone pines in California's White Mountains, tree rings indicate a temperature drop of at least 0.5 degrees. Similarly, the pine trees in Siberia's Katanga and the conifers on Tasmania showed no growth during the period when this mysterious cloud appeared. It is well known that darkened skies directly lead to a sharp decline in temperatures, which can be fatal for agricultural societies. As the economic foundation crumbled, it further led to social disorder, causing significant damage to various civilizations. In 538 AD, the indigenous people of Ireland, writing in Gaelic, recorded the poor agricultural harvests. Similarly, in the Mediterranean world, Procopius noted in his histories that the harvests were not as good as in previous years, with very few surviving crops and even fewer yields. Farmers could not even harvest enough wheat to sustain themselves, forcing many to leave their homes. At this time, the Far East, including China and Japan, was not spared. According to the History of the Northern Dynasties, in September 536 AD, agriculture across the northern dynasties was devastated by hailstorms, directly causing widespread famine. The History of the Southern Dynasties also records severe cold weather in July 537 AD, with snowfall occurring as early as August. These historical records also concurrently mention the widespread famine and the horrific incidents of cannibalism that occurred south of the Yangtze River. In fact, over 30 historical documents from around the world record the climate anomalies following 536 AD. When combined with the tree ring evidence from Tasmania and California, it becomes clear just how vast the impact of this mysterious cloud was. However, famine was just a prelude to a series of devastating events. Due to poor agricultural yields, rats in Africa began to migrate in large numbers, spreading bubonic plague. These disease-carrying rats traveled on ships from East Africa to the Eastern Roman Empire, spreading the plague far and wide. The rats first infected Yemen, located on the Gulf of Aden, and then crossed the Red Sea to Egypt. From the Nile River region, the plague spread to Syria and Libya on both sides, eventually reaching and ravaging the entirety of Europe. In the vast Eastern Roman Empire alone, nearly 45% of the population perished. The situation in the capital, Constantinople, was particularly dire, with the resident population plummeting from 400,000 to fewer than 100,000. The number of corpses outside the city gates was recorded at 230,000 before they had to stop counting due to the overwhelming number, making it impossible to estimate accurately. John of Ephesus, who was born in Asia Minor, also recorded that in some villages and towns in Palestine, everyone died without exception. The daily death toll of the poor rose from 5,000 to 7,000 or 10,000, reaching up to 16,000 at its peak. According to later scholars' estimates, this outbreak of bubonic plague resulted in the deaths of approximately 25 million people in Europe. It wasn't until around 800 AD that the population returned to pre-plague levels. The devastation caused by this pandemic was so severe, it was as if the gates of hell had opened and death reaped lives en masse. Consequently, Europeans referred to this catastrophe as God's wrath. In addition to economic decline and population loss, this wave of disasters profoundly altered the geopolitical landscape. The weakening of the Eastern Roman Empire's hegemony, the fall of the Sasanian Empire, the rise of Islam, and the intensification of conflicts in the Far East, leading to the unification under the Sui dynasty, were all indirect outcomes of these upheavals. Had the Eastern Roman Empire not been severely weakened, its powerful military might have achieved greater successes in its reconquest campaigns. However, the concentrated outbreak of bubonic plague drastically reduced the empire's strength, emptied its treasury, and halved the size of its army. Had the Sasanian Empire not been severely weakened, it would have remained a dominant superpower across much of Asia. However, the prolonged ravages of the plague led to the abandonment of many irrigation systems in the Mesopotamian plain, causing agricultural income to plummet due to the neglected farmlands. This triggered severe social unrest, which in turn intensified their long-standing wars with the Romans. Ultimately, the exhaustion from these conflicts led to their downfall, and they lost their long-held territories to the Muslim Arabs. Had the northern and southern dynasties in China not been severely weakened, the standoff between them might have persisted for a longer period. However, the pervasive nature of the disease severely undermined many dynasties, forcing their successors to rely on warfare or plundering to survive, ultimately giving rise to a new unified dynasty. The hereditary southern dynasties, inheritors of Han and Wei culture, were compelled to submit to the Xianbei-led Sui and Tang dynasties, originating from the steppes. This transition significantly contributed to a cultural discontinuity. However, we can discern a clear historical logic. The rise and fall of civilizations contain a significant element of chance. The inherent qualities of each civilization alone cannot entirely determine its longevity.